with whom we are blessed to spend most of our lives, and we should nurture those relationships. And then he said the best way to nurture a relationship is with a 7-second hug. Not a 2-second hug, which is normal, not a 4-second hug that they'll get used to, but a 7-second hug, which will leave them definitely knowing that you love them. So I definitely gave my 8-year-old more than a 7-second hug this morning. And Odette had a 7-second hug from me when she came in today. So he gave us all homework, and I'd love to share it with you guys as well. See if you can find someone to give an appropriate 7-second hug to today. So on that note, I am going to welcome you back to Love Tutoring for World Mental Health Day. Qualified Tutor has teamed up with Jack and Lorna from The Pursuit of Wisdom, who are immensely wise and wonderful women. Woo, that was alliterative, in Scotland, who do all sorts of awesome things with adults and children to boost well-being. And I'm consistently floored by the quality of their delivery. So this morning, Jacqueline's twin sister, Lorna, delivered a session for us on, well, ostensibly it was about managing overwhelm, but it was so jam-packed with wisdom and insight and new content that I hadn't heard before. It was immensely fresh and helpful. The recordings will be available in the QT community for QT members. Thank you, Hannah, for arranging that. And then this session here is going to be taking our thinking outside of our own realm, to put on our trusted adult hat and start thinking about how we support the students who rely on us. So I'm going to hand over straight away to Jacqueline to just to get going and get stuck in. But as more, Angela, you are so welcome here. Please notice that we would love your screen to be on if possible, so that we can make sure that we are reading you and including you in the conversation. This morning's session was really high trust, lovely shares, really participatory. Everyone got stuck in, and I'm hoping that we're going to give Jacqueline the same joy this afternoon, because we all know that it is much more fun for the coach when the participants get involved. Jack, over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for such a lovely welcome this afternoon, and we loved this morning as well. So I'll just share my screen and then we can get going. Is that sharing for everybody? Yeah. Okay, so just as Julia said, this morning we were obviously focusing on our own well-being first, because we cannot pour from an empty pot, and we shouldn't be. So topping ourselves up first is super important. Here's Lorna and myself. So Lorna can't join us this afternoon because she is prioritising her self-care, which is super important. So you've got me as your host today. My background is in education. I am a primary school teacher of 23 years and a life coach for children. And Lorna is a children's occupational therapist of 26 years. And an adult and child life coach as well. So we've combined our knowledge into Pursuit of Wisdom coaching. And from that, we're really keen to change the narrative around mental health and how it's perceived. So far today, we have been looking after yourself first, because you matter the most in your business, and looking at overwhelm first aid tools. Self-care for children, the way we would do that is all the tools that we spoke about this morning, we've actually encapsulated in one of our books, Mayling's Lemon Tea, which actually talks about how when you're just pouring out all your energy to other people, it leaves nothing left for yourself. And all the tools that we worked through this morning, we would actually have the equivalent for children to actually work through. This afternoon, we're going to be looking at beliefs. How to spot them, how to shake them up. We're going to be exploring the reticular activating system, because where the focus goes, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And thinking about how we can embed some of these coaching strategies into your tutoring business so that you can have a huge impact with the children that you work with. So just a wee quick reminder, this is our personal mission for Pursuit of Wisdom Coaching, that we want to empower 1 million children with the knowledge, skills and tools to live a calm, happy and wonderful life. And we can't do it on our own, and we wouldn't want to. So we kind of like see ourselves as we're the trunk, and our coaching tools are the kind of roots coming through. And then all the adults that we work with, you are our branches and the children are our leaves, so that we are really having that widespread. I keep saying I'm going to bake I've got a tree with gem leaves I'm trying to make. I think I'll need a forest for 1,000,000, but I'm getting there. We also, this is super exciting news to share. We have had our Wise for My Size coaching certification course accredited by a lovely qualified tutor. So that happened this week. So I'm sharing that here. So we're super, super excited about that. And then let me just talk to you a little bit about the Wise My Size program and why it all starts with a story. And that is one of the reasons is we are desperately keen to change the way mental health is viewed. Lorna spoke earlier about our kind of lighthouse analogy, that we're always searching and looking, and is it bad enough yet? Or don't think it's bad enough yet, we'll wait and see. And then when the child does tip over and something does happen, then there's that kind of panicking response. And quite often the services are super stretched and systems are stretched. The support that they need isn't there at the time that they need it. So we would like to look at it more as that kind of like life raft, that we can agree that 100% of children have mental health. And you don't have to wait till it's good or bad. We all have it, and we can all make it mental strength and make it stronger. You wouldn't turn around to a marathon runner and say, oh, I think you're fit enough. I think we're just going to stop there now. And likewise, that marathon runner could have an injury and not be able to do what they normally do. You wouldn't suddenly think of them as not having physical health. They've just had a little bump in their journey. So for us, when we thought about how could we destigmatize mental health and mental strength, the obvious answer to us was stories, because saying to a parent or to a child, can I read a story with you? Can I share a story with you? Is perfectly normal. And it's something that is, as tutors, is that bridge between school and home. It's so vital. We can bring that knowledge in through storytelling. There's also the aspect of the neuroscience of storytelling, which is a whole other workshop that I'm actually running for a group on Friday. But we love the neuroscience of storytelling, really backs it up. And that's why stories are so impactful for us. So we can change perceptions, plant ideas. There's so many parts of the brain engaging at the one time. It's actually changing your brain chemistry. They demand your attention more than just a fact. And you remember a story for longer. And it's really that emotional connection that you get with the characters in the story that that kind of lives with you. And also it has that level playing field. We don't need to rely on past experience or needing children to know things. When we share a story together, we all start in the same place. So it's very unifying and takes away any injustice or unfairness or lack of equality or anything like that. We're all just the same. We've all heard the same story. So just to briefly explain how I'll be running today's session, when we've created the coaching process, we're becoming Wise for My Size, we've got it in 6 steps. So step 1 is we share. We always start with the story first. And then step 2 is we're reflecting on how that story made us feel, what we thought about, what did it make us think of, did it remind us of anything? And then step 3 is we explore. So with a pure coaching approach, you assume that all the wisdom lies within the coachee and you are bringing that out. But with children, if they don't know what a comfort zone is, there's no amount of me kind of gently encouraging that out. They'll never learn about it. So we have this kind of coaching and teaching, a blend of both. And that's where we explore. So you're going to have a little chance to do some exploration yourself today. And then our last 4, 5 and 6 steps are experimenting. I always say that's like trying on strategies for size, what works for you, what doesn't. And then we're always preparing, future pacing, when could this come up, so that we've got these tools ready for when we meet a challenge. And then we're practicing, we're trying to make those new strategies become our habits. So that is the way that we work with anything. And for me personally, in my coaching business, I also combine this with curriculum knowledge. So I would refer to myself as a curriculum coach, because I'm working with the children to change their perception of how they believe they respond to maths or language. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. So this is just a kind of snapshot of the books that we've got so far. Today I'm going to be focusing on Captain RAS and Be Careful What You Wish For. With the sequel, Captain RAS to the Rescue, have to wait for that another time. But yeah, these books all cope around different aspects. So there's a good range of coaching tools available. Yes, Julia has the full pack. So my amazing brain. So we're going to be looking at beliefs and the reticular activating system. So the reason you may be tutoring a child in the first place is probably because they're not feeling very confident about a certain area of learning. So for me, when I'm meeting children, the two biggies are always like maths, like I can't do maths, and reading is quite often why I'm brought in by a parent. Their child's worried that they don't think they're good enough at these areas. So the child's already feeling like a failure. The system that they're in has shown them lots and lots of evidence that they can't do the thing that they feel they can't do. And their confidence is low. And you also might be working with them, I know I am, at the end of an already busy day. Quite often children have come in to me sort of straight after school, and after they leave me, they're off to like hockey or taekwondo or whatever else they're up to. So they have busy lives. And really, when we're just presenting ourselves back to this morning's work, when we're thinking about self-care and energy management, we don't want a generation of children growing up to be burnt out, exhausted adults. So it's really important that we kind of like set that kind of grounding of taking care of our energy, taking care of how we are as people, and have that holistic approach for children, so that they'll be able to be their best selves. So just to give a little distinction of how I would explain to somebody in kind of like teaching and tutoring terms about the difference between teaching and coaching is to use like the nemesis of most children, their times tables. So in a teaching approach, I might say, okay, here's how we learn the times tables. The 7 times table, we're going to do skip counting, we're going to work on arrays, we're going to, watch me, copy the way I do it, I'll give instructions. If they make a mistake, I'll say, no, that wasn't quite right, and we'll get them back on track. It's quite directive and outcome driven. Like, we'll know that you know the 7 times table when you can answer them all in this kind of quiz I've made up for you, But a coaching approach would always start with where the child's at. You always meet them where they are. So what do you believe about your ability to learn the 7 times table? So again, that makes them reflect inwards, like, oh, okay. When have I got evidence that I've done this before? Have I learned other times tables? Do I know things about the number 7 and multiples of it? So they start to explore inwards. Then I'd maybe ask them to show me, like to do it in a more practical way, like show me what you already know. How could we bring this to life for you, like to kind of bring that confidence out of you rather than just memorizing facts. Then it'd be thinking like, well, what help do you need? Like, where do you think we should go next with this? So they help direct the journey. Then it'll be those reflective questions like, what went well with that session? What do you need more practice on? So it actually becomes, instead of me directing them as to what they're going to do next, they're actually directing me on where they want the next session to go, or perhaps what they might commit to throughout the week to practice a little bit more, but it would be very much on their terms. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything about that. I can't see the chat from where I'm at, so if there's anything anyone wanted to comment on.
No, I just think it's interesting how it's almost like the coaching approach sits before the teaching approach.
Yes.
Yeah, so it picks up where do you need to practice is where the teaching approach should start.
Yes, exactly. But you do this inner work first, because sometimes, and we'll talk about this with beliefs, sometimes as we go on, when they come to a challenge, and sometimes I know from personal experience, the kind of like 6, 7, and 8 times table is the kind of blocker. They've maybe been doing very well with their 2 times table and the 3 and the 5 and the 10, and then they hit the 6 and the 7 and they go, do it anymore, because it suddenly feels hard.
Because the patterns aren't as predictable.
It's not as predictable, and also it's kind of harder to keep in your head. And when you think about remembering or having that image of certain patterns in your mind, when you're subitizing the bigger the number, the harder it is to visualize. Right. So what you and also your fingers are sort of, using two hands, it just feels more clunky. So strategies that could have worked now feel a bit out of reach, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't help them bridge a gap. And to say, oh, actually, I used that strategy when I was doing it this way. How could I use that strategy again? So it comes back
that's the metacognitive element. It's that sort of thinking about how you learn and what works for you.
Exactly.
And teaching them to have those words, because what you're doing is you're asking them the questions.
Absolutely. And it's also really important to understand how they might learn. So I, as a, like a class teacher, I might have this amazing strategy that I'm going to teach everyone. Maybe for 5 or 6 children, that doesn't work. So it's really important to actually explore, like, that's what I'm talking about, the experiment element.
Yeah.
We just try things on. How does that feel for you? Is that making it easier or not as easy? Or did it just make it feel like smoother for you? Like, oh, I'm getting that. Or did that make it feel worse? So again, it's not ever thinking that what we do is we stay very curious and open to what is the best method for you. And there's no shame, blame, oh, I've planned this lesson and you don't, and it's not working for you or anything like that. It's just like, okay, that's not landing very well for you today. Let's mix that up and change it. So we always say when you write a kind of coaching plan, you kind of do a plan and then you just rip it up. Because to be perfectly honest, even if you arrive on the day knowing that you're going to do one thing, what actually might have happened in that week can be very, very different. And it's actually better to coach the child in front of you than to stick rigidly to a plan. Yeah. So it's always really good to have that constant loop of feedback, that you are co-creating the session together.
So Jacqueline, this morning when we were in the session, I was halfway through writing you a note to tell you how well it aligns, your material aligns with the qualified tutor training. So anybody who's listening to this that's done QT training will know about the learning loop. And that's our approach to a responsive planning cycle, exactly. which is assessment first, which is exactly that. What do you believe? Where are you already? Yeah. I think it's worth pointing out as well, in curricula, we speak about knowledge and skills, don't we? We talk about a knowledge-rich curricula, we talk about a skills-based curricula, but there is a third element, which is beliefs. And that's what you're speaking to here. And I think that that's really, really powerful. I know that we used to use the Power of Reading curriculum, which spends a lot of time on the front cover exploring what the children's beliefs are about what this book's going to do. And I think that process is really valuable.
It's very valuable, and because you've then got, and when we're just talking about the neuroscience of story, actually getting them to share their story of how they've experienced their own learning is very, very powerful. And it's actually trusting the child that they know what's best for them. They know how best they learn.
Well, that phrase about experimentation sounds very close to that, doesn't it? And Lorna used the phrase this morning of the biting point. So it's all coming from this place of trusting the person to feel their own learning, which is so profound.
Yeah, and I think it can feel a little scary. As an adult who's never experienced that as a child, it almost feels like, what? No, I don't want, but it's actually like, another aspect of coaching is you let go of the outcome. You're not aligned with like, oh, my session will only be successful when these elements have been met. You actually let go of that, and you go with what the child needs in that moment,
which is so trustworthy.
Yes, and it does take practice. Practice makes progress, as we like to say, and it doesn't feel. It feels a little odd at first, especially when we have, as adults, neural pathways of not maybe being trusted as children to know best. It feels odd. We're not used to it.
That was a gorgeous piece of coaching training. Thank you.
That's okay. So we're going to focus today on beliefs, just as you were saying, that belief coaching. So what we define in our wisery of beliefs is what you believe to be true without proof. Okay? So your beliefs are stored in your subconscious mind. You're not aware of them until you actually bring them out and sort of examine them. And they're usually formed, or we say, like baked into you by the age of 7 or 8. So I can even think of my own childhood, a belief that I held was that when I was a little girl, my gran used to go to the cash and carry, and she would buy in like big trays of Cadbury's cream eggs. And all the grandchildren would swarm round when she came back, and we'd all be given an egg. Now, I believed that a Cadbury's cream egg was a raw egg in chocolate. Because why wouldn't I? My only experience of an egg up until that point had been that it was raw. And I just thought that would be absolutely disgusting. And why on earth would I want to eat a raw egg in chocolate? So I never did. I never took one until one day somebody questioned me as to why I wouldn't eat a Cadbury's cream egg. And I said, I don't want to eat a raw egg. That's disgusting. And then they kind of explained to me, well, that's not quite what it is. It's actually a sweet thing. And so very tentatively, I did try it. And then I loved them and still do. So it's that idea of something that you believe to be true without proof. So, at one point, it was believed that the world was flat until somebody went off and to prove that it wasn't. And so I know some people still believe that, but less people believe that to be true. So I was just going to ask the group, is there anything that you had believed maybe as a child to be true, but actually as an adult or when you were slightly older, you learned that it wasn't? Because I always think it's really interesting I always say children are good observers, but poor interpreters. So they're observing things and making up their own understanding of it, but they're not necessarily going in and checking if that's factual or real. They're just making up their own minds.
I guess it's a weird one for me. I was always told how important the 7 times table was. And I thought everyone had the same 7 times table like thrust into them day by day. And I seem to be the only person in my adult community who's like, oh yeah, 7 days from now, it's blah, blah. And I know it. And I think my mum gifted me with that. It's a weird one.
So you've actually benefited from having that kind of knowing the 7 times table is super important because we live in a world where the week runs in 7s.
Yeah. And I didn't even look at it like that. I just thought, oh, Mum, why are you making me do the 7 times table again?
So that's really interesting if like where your mum's belief that the 7 times table was super important that came from, because our beliefs are not always our own. They can be generational. They can be societal. They can be beliefs that friends have that kind of like seep into us, and we don't know that they're there until they're sort of challenged or you have to think about it.
I think a confounding question, because there must be endless number of things that we believe to be true that just get stored in there.
Yeah. I always thought it was a really interesting analogy that you're kind of in your own movie. So until you have another main character in that movie with you that says that's not the sun, that's the moon, or that's when you get challenged.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there's things that I know, but so just now we're just going to bring conscious awareness to it. There might be, as we're going on, there might be beliefs that you hold that aren't actually, it's not necessarily the truth. It's just something that you have believed to be true without proof. And again, going back from this morning, it's like having that high kind energy, the self-compassion to say, oh, it's all right. I just didn't know. And also I should say that there's no blame to grown-ups here, that beliefs are formed by the child's internalization and understanding that they had at the time. And so that's why I'll give you an example of one which I think would play out in many a playground. I was working with a wee boy. He'd just come from a different school. He was only 7 years old, and he was getting into terrible trouble at playtime because he was going up and punching the other children. And they were outraged. Parents were outraged. And the system was rolling into place where he was going to be severely punished. And I just thought, I wonder why. I wonder why a child who's no previous history of going around punching people is arrived at the school and is punching people. So I just said to him, what is it you think you're doing? Like, what game are you playing? And he said, oh, I'm playing Tig. Tell me about that. And he said, oh, well, he had observed that other children run up and Tig, you punch somebody and then you run off laughing. And everyone just joins in laughing and chases after you. Ah, okay. So instead of punishing him, I was like, okay, you just need to understand the rules of Tig. Like he saw something, he believed it to be true, and that's how he behaved. And again, is that curiosity?
Amazing story.
Do you see what I mean? So
amazing
that's what I mean.
story.
Before
if you punished him, he still wouldn't have learned how to play Tig properly.
No, because he couldn't understand why, when he did it, children didn't just carry on the game and run after him. And so yes, there needed to be an unpicking of that and then putting it together. And also, as soon as the other children understood that he hadn't understood the rules of the game, their anger went.
Oh.
They then wanted to help him understand so that he could join in, because they didn't want to be hit. At the same time, they were like, oh, I get it. So again, it's just that sometimes being like curious, not furious, is actually a better option. Just like, oh, what did you think was happening here? How was that for you? Like, just to kind of understand it better without having that shame and blame attached. So
one of the QT members has a story like that. Sarah Logan, she says that she once asked a child, how was school? And he said it was hard. And rather than reacting, as we all would assume, that school was difficult for him, she said, what do you mean? And he said, the chairs are hard, the tables are hard. Until he heard him say it.
It's like, from his point of view, you're like, you are completely correct. Those are hard things to sit on all day long. Yeah. You are right. Why do they not provide cushions? So in our wise my size world, we have two types of beliefs. One is a push me forward, and the other is a hold me back. It's not that one is right and one is wrong, but a little bit like we were talking earlier about some things push us towards and some things just push us away. We think, oh, we don't want to be this and we don't want to be that. So it's important when we're actually working with children that we actually understand what kind of belief what belief we're working with. And this is where I want to bring us to just now, because where we are working directly with children is that we need to understand that their values plus beliefs give us our attitude and behavior. So that's the outside thing that we are seeing is the attitude and behavior. The thing that we need to stay curious about is the values and beliefs that are generating that action and attitude and behavior. So for values, we define values as it's important to you, you will spend time, money, and your energy on these. For example, if I value kindness, I might give up an afternoon of my time to go and help a friend. Or if I value education, I might spend money on a book about a particular topic because I value finding out more information about that. You guys have valued your time to learn more and be the best tutor you can possibly be by joining us today, and you're wanting to improve your mental health. You've given up your time and energy for it because it's of value to you. So it's really important that when we are thinking about the children we work with, you're only seeing the behavior. We need to unpick the beliefs and values that sit behind that behavior. So, for example, that little boy who was playing Tig, his actual behavior was going around hurting people, but his actual values was friendship. He was desperate to join in, and he just wanted to play. And his belief was that is how you play in this school. You just talk, and they think it's a game. So that's what we're kind of talking about here. So if I could just illustrate this with a point, if I could introduce you to the lovely Kevin. So Kevin was a boy I worked with a few years ago now. I met him when he was 11. He was in his final stage of primary school in Scotland, so primary 7 or year 6 in England. And he had an absolute dream. His big dream was to become an architect. And he knew that maths would be part of that journey. He knew that being capable in maths was important. And up until that point of like kind of year 5, primary 6, he had been pretty good at maths, but just on that kind of end of term and coming into primary 7, year 6, his behavior had changed. He was avoiding maths. He was forgetting homework to take home. Mum and dad were worried. And so again, we had that first sort of parents' evening a few weeks in. How's it going? And they were concerned. So the first, with my teacher hat on, I could easily have like targeted key problems, given him extra homework and this thing, and set up communication between mum and dad and me, and we could all focus on how we're going to get Kevin to do maths. But with my coaching hat on, you get curious. So first step was to actually talk to Kevin, like, what do you think a maths person is, Kevin? Like, how would I know that I was good at maths? So he knew what this would be. You would be 100% correct. You make no mistakes ever. You can actually complete 5 full pages of textbook in like 10 minutes. It was amazing, a miracle. Not one person in the class was doing this, by the way, but that is what he believed to be true of a maths person. So unpicking it a little bit more, spoke to mum and dad, because dad also believed that a maths person was quick. And what had been happening was, while poor Kevin was trying to bathe in the evenings, dad was taking this precious time that they had together to fire times table questions through the door at him, which was putting Kevin under slight pressure. But what was worse was the little sister, who was just playing in her bedroom, was answering them because she was under no pressure whatsoever. So this was confounding dad's opinion that Kevin was rubbish at maths, because even his little sister's now better at it than him. And that's now what he believed: I'm no good at maths because my sister can answer and I can't. So we picked that apart a bit about with fight, flight, freeze. When we're under pressure, our mind goes blank and we can't respond. And then we also picked apart mathematicians that Kevin admired that maybe weren't doing everything really, really fast, that had taken their time over maths problems. Accuracy was maybe more important than quickness, especially in a career of architecture, where maybe your marketing slogan was not going to be, I can design your house in 10 minutes. It's not what everyone's looking for in an architect. They're looking more for accuracy. So once we actually managed to change his belief about what a good maths person looked like, his panic left him and the maths came, because he was always capable of maths. So this is where it's really important to actually pick apart the values and beliefs that sit behind what a child is maybe showing you or how they are behaving. I don't know if anyone wants to comment. Welcome to Angela and Julia. I see you've joined us again from this afternoon. It's lovely to see you back. So let me just give you an example of my life. So here's one. You might resonate with this. So I value good food, health. I'm very worried about food poverty. I enjoy being well fed and I enjoy being able to feed my family. So there are my values. My belief is I am really lucky to have food. Lots of people don't. If food goes to waste, that's really, really bad. And I'm a bad person if I waste food. So the action and behavior you might have seen from me is that I continue to eat even when I'm full, because I don't want to waste that food. I'm pestering my children to eat up. I treat myself once I've finished my main course with a pudding because I really wanted that sweet treat, but I wasn't allowed to eat it in my mind until I'd finished the food on my plate. So now I'm getting it anyway. I feel guilty and miserable because I've eaten too much. And that is the cycle that you're seeing. So I just wondered if it would be nice if you would like to explore maybe any values or beliefs you have for yourself, or maybe it's for a child that you know that they're behaving in a certain way, and maybe unpick the value and belief that sits behind that.
If I've noticed anything from the chat, it feels like all of us are kind of in the same boat as you with the food, and everyone needs to follow and finish their plate. I find it so difficult not to finish my evening meal with something sweet. And that's super interesting. I just had to share that with you so you know you're not alone.
No, but it's when you actually unpick that belief, it's like, where does that come from? Well, I can remember very clearly, like my gran saying to me, eat up everything off your plate, finish that. My dad, as a child, had not been allowed to leave the table until he'd finished his evening meal. And if he didn't finish it, he was given it as breakfast. So this is what I'm talking about, generation beliefs. It's not that the adult is being necessarily unkind, but without without looking at your behavior that comes behind it, you don't really know what's fueling it. So you're just perpetuating something that doesn't sit. So now I would very consciously be aware. Now that I'm aware of that belief, like I will say to my children, you know, like, you're not a bin. You don't have to eat that. And you also want them to trust their instinct. Like, you need to know when you feel full and it's okay to stop. You may have a bigger appetite one day than another because you snacked when you came in, right? You like to finish with something sweet. So it's perfectly okay just to not eat that little bit, or maybe put out 2 smaller plates and see if you want to eat the small plate first and keep, you know, elevensies, lunchies for tomorrow. Leftovers are good. You know, we could freeze that. So it's like looking for possibilities rather than just, you know, munching away when you don't really want to.
I need to share with you that Odette's just muttering to herself in the background. I love 11s.
Yeah. Elevensies are awesome. They're great. And how much more pleasant is it when you've actually, you know, you've not even had to cook them. It's just like heating them up in the microwave. You're like,
On the other one,
winning.
too much already.
Winning. Yeah. So
I've got one. I've got a hold me back thought.
Yep.
It's not nice to be too clever.
Ah.
It's not nice, right?
It's not nice.
It's supposed to be nice.
Nice, exactly.
That's a big one.
Can you think where that might have, like, how old you are? So let's see, wait a minute. Let's take that one.
Oh, I was 8.
Right, so
I was precisely 8.
So this would be some questions we could ask to unpick a belief. So when did you decide to believe this? So you're saying that you're 8, Julia?
Yeah, because I remember being on my way to primary school.
Ah, and did someone say it to you? Did you hear it? Was it just, yeah? A kind of adult that you admired, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So was there a time that you did not believe this?
Yeah, I mean, because until then, wasn't it great to learn to walk and talk and write and draw and all of those things? And then at some point it started being more than, yeah, there was definitely, yes, there was.
Yeah. So thinking back now for yourself, do you think, like, somebody, a significant adult in life, it could be mum, dad, gran, your best friend, do you think they believe that to be true for you, that it's not nice to be clever?
I don't know.
That you're not nice if you're clever.
I still believe it, probably.
No, would Hannah believe that about you, or Odette?
Be honest. Because you said it, and what do we say?
Shut up.
So there you go. They don't believe that to be true about you. And what happens, Julia, because you believe that it's not nice to be clever? What happens?
I diminish my everything.
Question everything before doing it.
And what are you not doing because of this belief?
Well, I'm not finishing the book, that's for sure, Jack.
That's what I was just thinking.
I thought you might.
Would a nice person,
Julie, have you got your big wet fish there, have you?
Okay, so here's the one that we can shake up. What could you choose to believe instead?
I could choose to believe that it's great to be of service, and it's great to put useful things in this world that resonate, and that not having a go is worse than, anything.
Yeah. And what would happen if you choose to believe this now? Your new belief. What would be different?
I think I'd deliver a book that I could be really proud of that would help people.
Fabulous. So we've all heard that. So now you're accountable to that. So we'll hold you to it, that this book is going to live. So just thank you so much for being brave there, Julia. Is there anyone else who's got a belief, that a kind of hold me back belief, that they might want to shake a little bit? And the thing is, we can do other work on this, but bringing a belief to conscious attention and then asking some questions around it they are the things that it starts to shake up. It loses its impact. It loses its power on you. And that's what we can do with children as well. So if they're coming to you and they're saying, oh, I'm not good at spelling, I'm rubbish at remembering that, even just saying like, oh, when did you decide to believe this? And then that next question, was there a time when you did not believe that to be true of yourself? It makes them go back into their subconscious and actually dive there and say, yeah, I didn't actually that. I worked with a wee girl just 2 weeks ago who's not a maths person. And I said to her, all right, so when did you decide to believe that to be true? And she said, oh, it was a Friday morning when I was in P3. I was like, wow, quite specific then. And I've also done the same with my daughter. She had a worry about an exam coming up, and we had a little chat about a belief. And when I asked her, how old is belief for you? And she was like 6 years and 3 months. And she was like, I don't even know where that came from. So a bit like when we met our archetypes, the answers are within us. We just don't know until we actually get curious and start asking some questions. Okay, so these are ways you can just embed these into your tutoring practice just by staying curious, asking questions, and then waiting for the answer to bubble up. Because they're going into the subconscious, you do need to give them that little bit of time to delve in before the answer can come out. So we're talking today about where the attention goes, the energy flows. So is anyone at the moment working with a child who is saying they want to get better at something, but they're not making a certain shift in a certain direction? There's maybe you're thinking of lots of different ways that you can explain this, to explore it with them, different resources, but it's maybe not it's not happening. I might just stop the sharing for a second so I can see the chat because I'm missing all the thing. Anyone working with anyone at the moment? They're kind of thinking like, yeah, I'm feeling a bit stuck because I just can't get quite them over this hurdle. Yep. Okay. So
I've got one for you. Nobody else wants
Yep.
to dive in. I've got one who's struggling to attend school and he's really doing his best. And the barriers just come thick and fast.
So there's a lot of maybe emotion behind that, beliefs that he's maybe not safe or it won't be a nice place to be.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that safety is a really key element.
Mm-hmm.
One of the lowest points was when the school tried to force him to stay in. So that really, really broke the trust there.
Yeah. And so when I'm thinking of that, it's that kind of values response, isn't it? So we would all probably as a society hold a value that learning and school is important. It's that generational belief. And we'd also maybe hold a societal belief that children should be in school. So when somebody comes up against that and their behavior and attitude is different, the response is almost like, oh, well, the only way we'll know if they're successful is if they're back in school. That would be, you see what I mean? So all the effort is put into getting them back into the school building because that's where the right place to be. However, if we actually take the time to say, like, how are you feeling about school? What do you believe to be true about school for you? What is stopping you from getting in there? What could we start doing to make it feel safer for you or more comfortable? We might get to the bottom of actually what the barrier is in the first place. Because something will have happened, something will have, and it might not be like one, major incident. It might be lots of little things that come together as a collective that the child has endured and endured and endured, and they have a tipping point that once that has gone over, it's too much. And as you say, now you've broken the trust, it's hard to bring that back up again because you're asking the child to put their own safety and well-being to one side to trust you that if they come back into school, their needs will be met. And as we were talking about this morning, if like your actual needs aren't being met and your heart's desire isn't being met, you cannot give. You cannot turn up and be your best self.
Well, thinking about that model from this morning, which was so gorgeous, where it pointed out that not being able to say no is a weakness and having too many cups. So that child is weller when he's saying no than he is when he's saying yes. The fact that he felt confident to refuse, I felt was healthier than him attending and breaking.
Yes, and sometimes because he's doing something that as a society we've been told is wrong, it makes us feel that his decision is wrong, but his decision was right for him in the moment. He was overwhelmed and it all was too much. And actually to be in an environment where it's not healthy or happy is not okay. And that doesn't mean that it's not a blame of the school or a blame of, there seems to be a lot of needing to blame. It must be someone's fault, but it's not, it's just like it's all of the things coming together that just mean that it's not okay in that moment.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's like this forever. It's like there could be another day when they feel more able, or that something changes that makes them feel more comfortable. So yeah, thank you for that. So it's interesting to like start thinking like, what is going on around that for them? Also going back to values, it's, you know, whose idea was it whose idea was it for a child to have a tutor? You know, whose value are they meeting here? Is it like, so how on board are they in improving what they're doing? So it's really important that you get that kind of like buy-in, that they're actually they're invested in their own learning journey, that they actually want to improve on something.
Julie's got some good stories about that.
Mm-hmm. Are you wanting to share that, Julie?
Are you with us, Julie?
I am here. I have to admit, I'm multitasking.
That's okay.
That's absolutely fine. Multitask away.
No, what I mean is I actually wasn't listening. I'm sorry. Because
no, that's okay.
my son needs CV printing off and I can't find it. So I'm going to have to go back from the beginning. So Julia, please do share my story. Whatever the story that was.
I think it was a student that was a cheeky monkey who you just discussed with him whether he actually wants to be there. And he turns out to now have been your longest standing student because you got the values aligned.
Yeah, he was a cheeky monkey. He still is a cheeky monkey. Now got his brother who's also a cheeky monkey. And so he's lovely.
Yeah, because he might, what we might see as the behavior is not listening, not paying attention, answering back, finding that, you know, all these things. But what that child might be meeting is their value of fun or excitement or variety or challenge or friendship. So that's when we're talking about when our values, we need to align our values with where they are at. So you need to meet them where they are rather than, so you're seeing behavior, but you're actually understanding what's fueling it. So we're going to enjoy a lovely story now. So I want you to sit back and relax. So again, we've just talked about the neuroscience of stories a little bit. So this should be giving you a lovely dopamine hit in the afternoon because you've paid attention very, very well. And I'm going to share with you Captain RAS and be careful what you wish for. So Captain RAS, the Reticular Activating System, is a well-meaning superpower who lives in your brain headquarters. Captain RAS can filter lots of information to stop your brain from exploding, but he can only filter information through the limits that you set. Think of it like your own filter focus machine. In our story, Sarah learns to be more careful about what she wishes for. Pushing her key into the lock, Mrs. Thomas could already hear the angry shouts of her daughter. Mr. Thomas's face filled with relief. Can you talk some sense into Sarah? Alice and cousin Gemma have offered to include Sarah in their plans tomorrow and take her to the museum. But according to Sarah, this is the worst thing ever in the history of the world. Sarah's face flushed in temper. Mum, I don't want to go to the stupid museum. I wanted to go to the cinema. I don't know them very well and you expect me to spend a day with them? Aunt Alice is your sister, Dad. Why don't you spend the day with her instead of me? Mrs. Thomas took a deep breath. Sarah, Dad and I are working tomorrow, so it really helps out if Alice takes you, and then you can all come back here for dinner. I saw a poster about a dinosaur exhibit. You love dinosaurs. When I was 5, Mum. I liked dinosaurs when I was 5. Sarah flew upstairs. I won't like it. It will be boring. Cousin Gemma will probably hate me. It will be the worst day ever. The bedroom door slammed and then there was silence. Sarah was fuming. She was determined that tomorrow was going to be the worst day of her life and she was not going to enjoy herself at all. Meanwhile, in Sarah's brain headquarters, Captain RAS was standing by. My RAS filter is tingling. A new message is coming through. Well, let's find out what the mission is for tomorrow. It's very clear that Sarah wants to have the worst day of her life. She believes that the museum trip will be a bore and she will have no fun and that Cousin Gemma doesn't like her. Captain RAS leapt into action and began programming the filters on Sarah's filter focus machine. Let's see. Sarah believes this will be the worst day ever, so let's switch off the filters for joy and anything positive and turn up the filters for negativity and bad stuff. She believes it will be boring, so with a little here, I will dull down her imagination and creativity. As for Cousin Gemma, if Sarah is looking for evidence that she does not like her, let's turn up sensitivity to sideways looks, sniggering, and sarcasm. For good measure, I will switch off Sarah's sense of humour, friendship, and fun completely. That ought to do it. Sarah, you are set to have the most boring, horrible, and lonely day ever. Just what you asked for. Captain RAS does it again. Sarah woke up the next morning in the foulest of moods. She had been right. It already felt like a bad day. Aunt Alice and Gemma arrived on time and grudgingly Sarah went with them. As they waited for the number 33 bus, Sarah felt as though all the colour and joy had been zapped from the world. Everything was dull and boring. Aunt Alice gave her a smile, but Sarah just turned the other way. Sarah noticed that Gemma looked at her sideways 5 times on the bus. At one point, she even tried to tell Sarah how nice her outfit was. Obviously, Gemma was just being sarcastic, probably trying to pretend to be nice to her in front of her mum. Sarah hated phony people. Sarah knew Gemma didn't like her, and this was just proving her right. Sarah walked around as if in a fog. There was nothing interesting to look at. The pieces in the museum didn't inspire her and could not hold her attention. She was totally bored, just like she knew she would be. Filtering is my superpower. I will show Sarah evidence to prove that what she believes is true. Captain RAS scanned Sarah's senses. Alert, alert! What sort of trickery is this? Art exhibition of Aboriginal art? Sarah would love that. Well, not on my watch. I have programmed the most boring day as requested, and that is what she will have. Ignore. Sarah sulked all the way home and scurried upstairs, ignoring Gemma's offer to play a game. Sarah felt so miserable and hot tears spilled down her cheeks. I've had the most awful day I could ever have imagined. Oh, I wish I could feel happier. What on earth could I do to make myself feel better? I just want to feel happy again, she sobbed. On hearing this, Captain RAS sprang into action. My RAS filter is tingling again. What is this? Sarah now wants to feel happiness and joy? Captain RAS knows just what to do. Leaping at the controls, he began turning up happiness, joy, creativity, friendship and fun, and turned off hopelessness, sadness and negativity. Should banish the blues for Sarah. Filtering is my superpower. Opening her bedroom door, Sarah suddenly noticed laughter coming from the living room. Feeling curious, she crept down the stairs and watched from the doorway. Aunt Alice and Gemma were telling her mum and dad about the fun and exciting day they'd had at the museum. She listened, Sarah became very confused. I don't remember that happening, she blurted out. Aunt Alice looked at her with kind eyes. Sarah, I don't think you wanted to see the fun we had today, but it was there if you were willing to look for it. I enjoyed our day, Gemma said shyly. Would you like to go out again sometime? Sarah noticed Gemma's wide smile and friendly eyes for the first time that day. Perhaps she does like me after all, thought Sarah. Yes, please, Sarah said. There was a film I wanted to see at the cinema. Would you like to come with me, Gemma? I think we would have the best day ever. Captain RAS leapt to the control panel. Your wish is my command, Sarah. Preparing your filter settings for the best day ever. So I hope you enjoyed the little dopamine hit there of our lovely storytelling, and maybe you recognised in that sometimes when you felt that you've not wanted to go somewhere and the time has dragged and things have just felt really awful, and you might compare it to times when actually you've really enjoyed being somewhere and time has gone so quickly you actually can't believe the time's over. And children really get that too. So when we talk about the reticular activating system with children, it's really important that they understand that this is how their brain works. We are pre-programmed to look for the worst case scenario. It's what's kept us alive. So when they are feeling like they can't do things and things feel hard, there is a little truth in that. But if we only focus on that, we're going to get more and more of the problems coming, and we're not going to be able to look for the solutions. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the reticular activating system, and then if you can join in, we'll have a little mini quiz at the end, just to make sure you're all still awake. So your RAS is found at the base of your brain. It's only about the size of your little finger and about the same diameter as a pencil. So why all the fuss? Well, it's your filter focus machine, and it only lets in information that you let it. So your RAS protects your brain so it doesn't explode by filtering out all the information you get from all of your senses all of the time. So they reckon there's up to about 174 newspapers worth of information we receive every single day, and we cannot handle that. So our brain has evolved over time that the reticular activating system, our RAS, is a thing that actually keeps our brain from only taking in the information that we absolutely need. We can imagine it as like a gatekeeper. So once you've set your filter to what you're going to focus on, that's what gets through. So I don't know if you've ever been aware of this, that when you decide to get like a new car, all of a sudden you notice that make of car around on adverts, or you decide you're going to go on holiday and all of a sudden everyone's going on holiday to France, the same place you're going. That is because those things have always been there. It's just that your RAS wasn't paying attention to them. So for example, when you learn a new word, suddenly you hear that and see that word everywhere. The word's always been there, but you hadn't focused on it before. So if you don't mind just joining in, we're just going to have a little explore of our reticular activating system. So just give me, I'm going to say a few things that I've just told you about, and let's see what if you can give me the answer 1 or the answer 2. So what does RAS stand for? 1, really amazing senses. 2, reticular activating system. Vote now. Well done, 2s. It is reticular activating system. Where is your RAS? 1, the base of your brain. 2, the base of your leg. 1, correct, the base of your brain. Your RAS is the size of 1, your little finger. 2, your big toe. 1, brilliant, your little finger. Your RAS is the width of 1, a pencil. 2, the contents of your pencil case. Brilliant, your pencil. And when you learn a new word, your RAS, 1, commands everyone you know to say the word to you, or 2, it helps you pay attention and focus on the word. 2, well done. Quiz Pops, you're amazing. So there's 2 little bits of information about your RAS, and it will always let through 2 types of information. Firstly, your name. So I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where someone has said something that sounds similar to your name and you've responded, and then it turns out it wasn't. So my example of that was when I was a school placement and someone said a name. I thought they'd said Lorna, which is my twin sister. I answered saying yes. They then said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know your name was Laura. And I had to say, no, I'm sorry, it's not, it's Jackie. And it was just so embarrassing. So it was like, because that got through. And that's how, when we're in a noisy restaurant, we can actually focus on our conversations. We can find our car in a car park. Our RAS is programmed for it. But the other thing that will always let through is danger. So, for example, if you are driving in your car and the radio's playing, and you're singing along, you hear a police siren, that automatically cuts through any other noise, because we're programmed to pay attention to anything that could be danger or a threat. So that the siren comes through and you immediately start thinking, like, you turn down the radio, you try and find a space to pull over. So those are the things your RAS will let you do. So let's have a little explore. Proof your RAS exists. So in the room around you, I would like you to find for me as many things as possible in the room that start with the letter S, or the S sound. Scan, scan, scan. Program your RAS. What can you see? I'll stop sharing so I can see. You can put it in the chat if you want. Someone doesn't love a quiz. We did well. Find anything beginning with S? You can type it in the chat.
Okay, Odette's doing this really well. She's pointing around the whole office. She said, "This is sparkling water."
Sunglasses.
I thought this
Sparkling
was
water.
She's
Sweet.
got sunglasses here. I thought
Sunglasses. What is that, Julie?
The spring.
A spring. Fantastic. Fantastic. So
No,
these
little
things.
coppery things.
Yep.
I've
These
literally
things.
got nothing starting with S in my whole office right now.
Okay, I'm looking behind you.
I
am now
have
looking.
Ruffalo, Elmer.
Selenite stick.
What have you got?
Selenite stick.
Sinus.
Odette's got sinus. Ugh.
Right.
Ah,
Using
I
a wet
haven't-
wipe to clean your hands. What have you got? Oh,
a Shakti ring.
a shatter. This. Julie,
Your
you're
guess is
amazing.
much more exciting than mine. I've got a
Okay.
lot of post-its from earlier. Nothing with
Stationery. Stationery.
stationery.
Stationery. Who hasn't got stationery?
That's got stationery, exactly. So this is something you can do that's a really fun game to play with the children that you work with, especially if you want to get them kind of like grounded and focused on the environment and get them back into their bodies. So can you find me anything in your room that's purple?
Oh yeah. How much do you want? I live
As
in
much as you've
purple.
got. Oh,
I live in purple.
oh, Angela's got scissors as well. Are they purple scissors, Angela? Oh, Julie is now one.
Purple.
Oh, got a folder.
Purple.
Purple. My goodness, I picked your colour.
Purple.
Purple.
Oh, can't reach. Purple.
Purple, love it.
You do know no one can walk past me now, right?
Yeah, I know. You've barricaded yourself in. Oh, well done. A little textbook with purple. Love it. I've got my water bottle that I've just noticed is purple.
Purple.
Very good. Purple heat pad. Loving this. Okay. So this is, we would
Purple
never.
folders.
Angela's a
done
purple
so-
person as well. I can see that.
Yes. I've chosen obviously the right colour for you people.
so.
This is fantastic. I love
think
this
so.
group. So this is really helpful if we would never tell children, oh, you have a reticular activating system. We would always let them explore it. So I hope by letting you explore it briefly, you are now convinced that you do have a reticular activating system, because all of these things had been around you all the time and you'd never really noticed them because you weren't paying conscious thought. Another way you can do this with children is to program your RAS to say, I want to feel all the things around me. So I want to feel the clothing on my body, the chair that I'm sitting on, this floor that I'm standing on, and it can really present them to where they are. You can also take a moment to hear all the sounds around you. So did anyone notice there's the sounds going on that you hadn't been aware of because you were maybe focusing on this and my voice? Is Angela going to say something? So it's really interesting that the reason we have the RAS is to help keep us safe. But when we focus only, like Sarah did, only on having that very bad day, or I'm not going to have a good time at school because it's such and such a subject, or I can't do this or I can't do that, that's when we become, they're right, they won't have a good time. They will find it hard, because that's the story you've kind of told yourself. Oh, pencil on paper. Well done, Angela. Yes, such a quiet noise, but you hadn't been aware of it until we brought our conscious attention to it. So that's us had a little chance to explore. Sorry, just go back down to where we were meant to be. I'm not going to redo the whole thing for you. You're all right. So this is like a fun way that you can bring it in. So even you can maybe start, sometimes if I'm introducing like a topic, especially like in math, like, oh, I might say what it is and then say like, oh, what are your first thoughts? What do you believe to be true about this for yourself? What do you imagine might happen once we start working on this? And they always go to like practically sudden death. Fractions will kill them. But then it's good because it's good to get those negative thoughts out first. So this is the way our RAS works. You decide it's going to be the worst day ever. You set your RAS filters to look for that. The reticular activating system's job is to find proof, to prove what you believe to be true. So you're now scanning for all the things that make it the worst day, the uncomfortable journey, the scritchy clothes, the annoying teacher's voice, the person that sits beside you and nudges you all the time. It's too hot. You're just not going to enjoy that experience of wherever you are. And then you believe it to be true, because remember, belief is something we believe to be true without proof. So we're just keeping that cycle going. And then she had the worst day ever. So if we take this into like a learning context, we have our beliefs, our self-talk, and our proof. And this is what loops the children round and ourselves. So we have a belief: to be good at maths, you must be quick and get everything right. This is Callum here. So what he was saying to himself was he was focusing on the things that he got wrong, any mistakes he made, if other people were quicker than him, anything that reinforced the belief that I'm not good. So he knew that. So his self-talk, the way he speaks to himself, is says, I knew it. I knew I was no good at maths. I just can't do it. So his proof for that is, I got 3 questions wrong. And that loops back into his belief of, to be good at maths, you must be quick and get everything right, which he did not do because he got 3 things wrong. And so it goes on that he can't be good at maths, and round and round and round it goes until we actually can disrupt that belief system, that loop. Okay. And the way we can do that is just by asking questions, gently challenging if that's actually true. Even say like, oh, to be good at maths, you must be quick and get everything right. Oh, is that true for everyone in your class? Everyone gets everything right? And then immediately they start thinking, oh no, wait a minute. Well, maybe not everyone gets everything right, but at least one person, at least Poppy gets everything right. She's always got everything right. Wow. And just leave it kind of open-ended so that they can actually start to think about it themselves. So for Callum, we could try and change his belief. So we could have a different belief that being good at maths means challenging yourself and making progress each time. Does anyone want to suggest what his self-talk could be? What might pop up instead? If you believe that being good at maths means challenging yourself and making progress each time, how else could Callum speak to himself? What else might he be able to come up with that would be more encouraging? Shine talk instead of shame talk. I'll just stop sharing for a second. What else could Callum be saying instead of thinking like, I'm no good at this? He's now thinking being good at maths means challenging yourself. So what might Callum believe now if he came up against something that felt challenging to him? Or if he made a marvelous mistake?
For me, it's something. Sorry, who was just about to dive in? Was that you, Hannah?
I was just going to read what Angela said, which is, I am practicing how to do this.
Oh, brilliant. That's fantastic. Well done. I'm practicing how to do this. Yeah.
I was also thinking about that thing of, it's so much better to have a go than be that person that never has a go. Exactly.
That's another great way of looking at it. Like, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to try. Mistakes means that I'm learning. When we're talking about all those kind of growth mindset phrases and things like that, this is when they really come into play, because having those little mantras, those little things you can say to yourself, can make it you keep going when it does feel a bit challenging and it doesn't feel very comfortable. It's really important.
Also, what's the worst that can happen?
Yep, exactly. What's the worst that could happen? Publishing your book or not publishing your book? I'm going to keep coming back to you, Julia.
I've got a worse thing that could happen that I keep
Go on
pointing out when I've got those really, really anxious students who are coming up to their GCSEs and all the pressures
Yeah.
going on. And it's like, but what if I fail? But what if you fail? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Your parents are still going to love you and the world is going to continue spinning on its axis. What's the worst that can happen? And it sounds really kind of minimizing, that's not the right word, but in the grand scheme of things, these GCSEs, that is the worst thing that could happen, you know? Your parents are still going to love you and the world is not going to stop spinning.
Yeah.
You will still survive.
That's brilliant, Julie, because again, knowing how our brains work, we are predisposed to always look for the worst case scenario. And see, for children who are kind of like more pessimistic, they will look for the problems before solutions. It's actually really important that they get a chance to drain like all the negative thoughts, because only once all the negative thoughts come out is there a chance for positive thoughts to grow. So actually, even just by saying like, and then, yeah, like I got all the, and then, and then, and then, it actually just allows them, it's not minimizing it at all. You're actually holding space for them to say the worst thing that they think is going to happen. And quite often, you know, I was actually speaking to someone well in their 60s the other day, and they were kind of, you know, catastrophizing, and they went on and then, and basically they were sleeping under a bridge. That's where their mind, but only once they got all of that out, and that can sound quite dramatic, but it was only once they cleared it off their plate was actually able to then thinking about the what if it's fun, what if I don't fail, what if I pass, what if my parents still love me, what if it's not the end of my life as I know it, what if there's life after school, what if there's other opportunities to learn that, you know, but that's a really, really good method of actually draining it. So well done to you. So here's one that comes up that a lot for children is the public speaking, you know, and also for adults. I think it's like deemed like worse than death. You know, people are really scared of public speaking. But again, this is where we can speak to children about what's real. And this is where we can shake up a belief. So if it were true that public speaking was absolutely a danger, it was something to be absolutely feared, nobody in the world would speak in public. It's a bit like a fear of spiders. If that was true, everyone would be scared of spiders. Or if a fear of heights was real, no one would go anywhere off, wouldn't even climb up a step. So it's bringing it's that challenging gently that belief system that they hold by letting them look for examples around them of things that don't marry up with that don't prove that point. So when you are nervous, when you are worried, you tend to look for all the things that you are doing wrong, and you only see what other people are doing well. So, you might notice that your voice is shaking, you're trembling, you feel sick, and nobody else seems to be nervous at all. But that's just because that's the story you're telling yourself. Whereas if you said, it's normal to feel a little bit worried when you're putting yourself out there in front of people. We could be nearsighted, nervous, excited. So we need a little bit of adrenaline to get us going, and look for possibilities of maybe supporting other people when they're feeling nervous, and actually notice that we're all feeling kind of in a similar way is actually really, really nice. So when we're working with kids and they are maybe feeling a little bit unsure, we can actually focus them into so as you're saying, Julie, for your GCSE students, just get them present to what is it you would like to feel? What tapping into the energy and the emotions behind it. What would be nice to feel when we're going into these exams? Do you want to feel like you're achieving? Do you want to feel that you're improving? Are you motivated? Because actually focusing not on just getting the best result or, you know, a pass mark, whatever, actually enjoying the experience of the process can also make it less threatening. So, you know, what if they're going into something like, what do you want this lesson to focus on? Do we want to focus on like achieving a goal? Does it feel more important that we're learning something new this session? Are you wanting to look for possibilities? Look for new strategies that we can be using? Is it more important today to feel and stay positive, especially when we're tackling an area that you sometimes can make you feel a little bit sad and worried and not able? So it's a really nice way of actually just starting your tutoring sessions by actually really focusing on what the child wants the end outcome to be, and it doesn't have to be results driven. It can actually be a feeling driven, or it can be a thought process, or actually even just noticing, say, for example, it was improving, it might be, where were you the last time we met, and can we make an improvement from there? So even if it's just, you know, if they like to get answers correct, if that's the way that they prove it to themselves, okay, well, let's be realistic. Is it like a percentage more than last time? Is it 5 questions more? Is it that you're completing things? You answered more questions this time than we did last time. You actually did it without the manipulatives. This time you actually were able to draw a picture that explained that much better. You know, what is it they're actually wanting to get out of it, and not just be like results driven, as in like numbers. There's more ways to be successful than just that. Does that make sense? Or is there anyone that you can think of at the moment that you're working with that you actually think that by encouraging them to think of how they would like to feel might actually help them get a slightly different outcome for themselves, and let them focus on more solutions than them?
I think the motivated would be good. No, if you kind of think the confident and motivated, positive, all about positivity.
Fabulous, thank you. Yeah, just getting them to think like, I'd like to be more confident in myself. And then also they can then start to think like, how would they know? How would they know they were feeling more confident? So again, it's tapping them into their inner knowing, their inner wisdom, and what that would look and feel like for them. What might they be saying about themselves? What would they be looking like? How would they be holding themselves?
I've got a little boy who who just cannot, threshold for making mistakes is so high.
Okay.
What is really interesting is, I was thinking about actually maybe exploring this with him. One of his insults to other children at school is loser.
Loser, right? Okay, so what does loser mean to him?
Exactly, and I think that's for him is what it is. It's just this sheer sense of I'm a loser.
Yeah.
And he's not.
No. So may I share something with you, Angela, that I use a terminology, a phrase that we also use. So when I'm, you may have heard me say earlier on, we talk about marvelous mistakes. Okay. And the reason they're marvelous is because there's 2 types of mistake, marvelous and a lost your way mistake. So a marvelous mistake is literally when you are coming out of your comfort zone. Okay. You are not well practiced at something. You don't believe that you're capable. When you're just learning something, or you're not completely, you don't have mastery of it yet, it is very, very likely that you will not do it well. We call it a fail, which stands for first attempt in learning. So actually, before I'd even start the work, I'd be like, let's look at where we think we might make a marvelous mistake here. Where are you not as well practiced? What feels the trickiest part for you? So that he's actually already in a mindset of expecting that marvelous mistakes will happen. And the reason they're marvelous is because when we make them, we can learn from them. They're like a springboard. Ah, great. So now we know that isn't the right answer. How does that help us for the next time? Rather than seeing it as a dead end, we see it as like it's opening up another possibility for us. And actually using it as in that, couching it in those terms, it doesn't seem as threatening. But I would love if you picked apart what he believes loser means, and how like where that values come from. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, darling.
Sorry, fingers and thumbs. Yeah, I will, and I'll post it.
Oh yeah, please do. Please do, because it'd be really interesting to know, like asking those questions, like when did you become aware of that word? Who do you believe to be a loser? What evidence do you have of that? How would you know? How would you know that someone wasn't a loser?
Because I didn't know whether to, but those questions are probably better, because I wanted to ask them, well, what makes a winner then? After you've done the loser question, what makes a winner? What's different?
So it'd be interesting to see what he classes as the opposite. So it might be, you know, if you said like what would make somebody not a loser? You're still using his language.
Absolutely.
But you're just seeing, it'd be interesting to see what he came up with.
Yeah.
Because he might have a belief, and it's just always really interesting to shake that up a little bit for him, because it's probably fueling his actions. The reason he doesn't like making mistakes is because it kind of brings that belief background. Oh, well, I don't want to be a loser. If I'm getting things wrong and making mistakes, I'm a loser. The proof is I'm not doing very well on this, therefore I must be. You can see how he's just like, so it's like getting we need to get him off the roundabout in some way or another.
And that's how he escalates. Yeah, you can see the escalation in him. Yeah. What was the second mistake? Marvelous mistakes.
It's marvelous and a lost your way mistake. So this is when it comes back to a values-based mistake. So this is when children make a mistake that you don't always get feedback straight away. Like sometimes you do, like, oh, you really hurt my feelings. Okay, I know that. But sometimes you get it later. So it might be that when you retell the story, you don't tell the full truth of it. It might be that you don't let yourself think about it because it's making you feel uncomfortable feelings like guilt or shame. So when we get to these ones, what we're trying to unpick there is you'd be meeting one value or else you wouldn't have acted on it. So a good one to do as an example would be that you found money in a wallet, right? So I value honesty. So I might hand that in. That would be my action. I value honesty. So, and also I'm thinking about how it would feel if I lost my money, and I've done that before and it feels horrible. So I wouldn't want someone else to experience that. Somebody else might value it in a different way, whereas actually they think, oh, well, I'll never find the person that this belongs to. So I might donate it to charity. So I've actually had children, actually explain that to me, like I would keep the money, but I would do something good with it. So they see almost like the value of like passing it on. So to them, that wouldn't be stealing, because they're looking at the bigger picture for them and thinking, well, the reality of finding that person is just nil, So I may as well do something of value to it. Or actually, do you know what? I've worked really hard today, and if I hadn't walked across here, I might find that, and I'll buy myself something, but it'll be for the greater good of, So that's when we're talking about, it's a values-based mistake. You've met one value, but in doing so, you've ignored another value, and that's why it doesn't feel very nice. So that could be, for example, if you've looked over at your friend's answers in a test or something like that. The motivation behind it was, I don't want to be a loser. Your value was like, my reputation, matters, like what people think of me. And in the moment, it seemed like a really good idea. But on reflection, or when you get the results back and you pass and you don't believe, oh, I didn't actually gain that, it doesn't feel nice. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's that emotional intensity attached to those values as well, isn't it? It's more important to him not to be a loser than it is for him to be honest. And so that one wins.
Yes.
That trumps.
Yeah, that will always outweigh it until you actually allow them to take that kind of like longer view of it. Okay, so what happens if we always cheat at a test? It gets you out of it at the moment, because we are pre-programmed to avoid those uncomfortable feelings. We do everything we can to get ourselves away from it. But say, for example, a classic one is avoidance. So they go to the toilet when it's the spelling test or whatever on a Friday morning. Well, that's great because it got you out of it in the moment. But if you always avoid spelling tricky words, you'll never learn how to do them. So it's actually about being in the moment of being uncomfortable and it letting those feelings pass through you. They don't sit with you forever if you can take action on them. And just because a feeling is uncomfortable doesn't mean that you shouldn't feel it. And the more you ignore it, the more intense it becomes over time. It's like pushing down a beach ball in a swimming pool. You'll be able to do it for so long, but if somebody jumps in beside you and you lose attention, boom, up it pops and smacks you in the face. And that's what happens with emotions. So I'd be really excited to see how you might use this with the children that you're tutoring, and see what they come up with, because they'll come up with very exciting things. I'm very sure of it. And then that's just another way, just to remind you of some questions you can ask, to start shaking up those beliefs. So it's always done through curiosity with no judgment or shame. And if they say something, one of my stock phrases is I say, oh, that's really interesting to know that about yourself. So that they can actually, there's no judgment from you, because you want them to be open and honest with you, and they're just exploring. They're just exploring their beliefs.
To me, the consistent theme of holding space for them in this really non-judgmental way is just, it's immense, and it's not easy.
That's why the self-care and the looking after yourself is really important. And also, when we were talking a little bit earlier in the morning about changing like your archetypes, it's really good to have some rituals. Like once you've maybe finished working with one child, maybe for the end of the day, or before you go into another, that you do actually maybe have, like, I have a piece of some music that I listen to in the car if I'm moving between like one home to another, and it just revigorates my energy, because I cannot be in like mother all the time, or you're just over mothering people. It's good sometimes to actually think, no, I need to change this up. We need to actually get something happening here. And so music is a great gatekeeper of changing mood, of changing energy. And it's really good also for them to kind of like sometimes to tap into, like once they know what they want to feel in a situation, whether it's before an exam or if it's before their tutoring session. A little girl I work with, and the work I do, I call it Maths Confident and Language Confident. She's actually made a Spotify list called Maths Confident. And she plays that before we meet it, or sometimes even during it if we want to change. So it's just things that she
What's
finds
on the playlist?
Oh, it's her choice, Julia. I honestly won't.
Is there any Taylor Swift on there? I need to know.
There isn't. I'm a bit disappointed. It was purely her choice of music. But if you look up on Spotify, Maths Confident, there's like a playlist of 4 songs, and they're purely chosen by this little girl, and she loves them, and that's what she listens to make herself feel maths confident. So it's all lovely. It's all wonderful
Beautiful.
here. But that's another good way of getting them into that energy state if you want them to quickly change their energy. And it's great fun to explore like some songs, or it could even be some like an action they do, or the way they stand, like, doing the power pose. I quite like to do that sometimes in Maths Confident, little power pose before we go into the decimals, So again, it's just fun to like that experimental part just to play around with.
Amazing.
So just coming back, we're going to bring you back to, because we're coming near to the end of the day, some of the reflections that you've maybe had on today. Maybe like what, if I remind you, sorry, what we said that we were going to cover with you, knowing about beliefs, how to shake them up, knowing that it's values and beliefs that create the action and behavior that you're maybe seeing or hearing, because they might be saying something. Yeah, what's your biggest like sort of takeaway? What might you do differently, or what are you going to do differently?
I'll dive in and share with you that Curious Not Furious is stunning. That's a really, really lovely one that I'll be sharing.
Good, thank you. I don't know, Hannah or Julie, if you could read out what's in the chat, because I can't. Oh no, sorry, I'm lying. I can see.
Sorry, Angela, I didn't see.
Like,
Angela has shared the warrior has been one thing she's taking with her. I love that.
And I love, Angela, sorry, you've put RAS has a big role to play in self-doubt. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that is my own personal reflection for me, I think, as well. And you know, when you're ill and you just go a bit down and low on yourself, and you know, and just realizing how much I've got myself into a little bit of a pit. So yeah, so thank you for that.
No, that's good, because it's always good just to reflect and think, like, what is the story I'm telling myself right now? Is it helpful or is it hindering me? Fabulous. And is there anything you might start doing or stop doing? So that's how we build habits. We need to either start doing something or we need to stop doing something that's not helping us. Oh, sorry.
I'm not great at habits. I'm good at routines, but I'm not great at habits. I'm feeling a major urge to rearrange my office right now, which is probably not what I had as probably not what I should be doing. I really, really would love to learn more about the archetypes. I was just looking up online on Amazon to see what I could find to read more about that. Could you give me a pointer, please, to find out more about the archetypes?
The place I would direct you is either, if you want to work with them directly, I would suggest working with Lorna, who's a one of many coach, but also the one of many community has got, this is like Dr. Joanna Martin's work. We're both in the one of many community, and that's where, when you understand the powerfulness of coaching, that's what prompted us to actually develop it for children, because you actually think, if I knew this when I was 8, it's amazing. So like our Wise My Size tools, they are just good quality coaching tools. That's all they are. And then it's making it accessible to children. So the one of many community is where I would go. Or if you're looking for coaching for yourself or for like an older teen, then I'd definitely recommend Lorna.
Fantastic. I'm going to follow up with both of those things. Thank you.
And then it was just, if I could just take a quick moment just to let you know again about our Wise My Size Coaches cert, because we've just dipped into a tiny little element today. We have the online learning, in-person training, coaching practical, and the assessment, and it's been verified now, course accreditation by a qualified tutor. So thank you so much for that, very thorough. Just to let you know, we've got an early bird discount at the moment if you pay the deposit before November. 3rd of November. We also would like to offer a qualified tutor scholarship with a further £300 off. And we have information sessions coming up on these dates, but I'll share these with Julia, where you can come in and find out a bit more about the course and experience a bit more coaching and how it could impact you and your business. So I've combined my knowledge of teaching with coaching from my coaching curriculum business that I work throughout the week on, as in groups. I run groups and one-to-one sessions. And then that's what we said we were going to do. I hope we've met your expectations for today, and I hope you're having a lovely well-being session for yourself and you're taking some things away with you. And yeah, just thinking again, what was your little eureka moment? We kind of covered that. It's really important to hold on to that, and maybe you might want to put something in the chat about your your commitment to what you're going to do differently, how you're going to show up for yourself and for your tutees. And then it was just if there was any questions.
Okay, so I'm going to dive in here, and I'm going to thank you, Jacqueline, for the most glorious day. Goodness me. My eureka moment was just remembering how great good learning feels. And the right learning for right now. Angela, I hope you don't mind if I feed back to you. You've come to life during this day, and it's been a joy. I hope you're feeling better as well, and you've had lots of tea and honey. But
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I feel that too. I certainly feel energized, and yeah, I have come on a bit of a journey actually. This has been the best decision I made this morning. So thank you.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm thinking about the vase with the leaking water that we looked at earlier, and how we might have sort of stopped some of those leaks, because we were talking about guilt, weren't we? And we were talking about relationships. And for me, that thing about showing up and being curious and exploring what's available and just sitting still long enough to just listen has been an absolute joy today. Hannah and I are nodding our heads off because you have exceeded our expectations today, Jacqueline,
so
you and
much.
Lorna.
Thank
You guys should know that I did speak to Jack in the lunch break, and she has agreed to work with me to find out more ways that we can bring Pursuit of Wisdom to qualified tutor members. Oh, what was that? Goodness me.
Oh, sorry, that was just if anyone wanted to know details of the course. But
We want to see, don't be shy.
all right, okay. So it's just to, it's just everything that we offer.
Yeah, quite right. And there are definitely some QT members who have already trained and become Wise for My Size coaches and are delivering the material. Much loved members of the community. And I think that, there's been so much conversation in the press around tutoring being beyond academics, which really seems to be something that people want to hear about. Parents want to hear about the mentoring role, the spillover effect, what happens to the whole child when they have a good learning experience. So I think that this is building out our repertoire for being able to do that. So if you don't already know, being a QT member helps you to feel safe, skilled, and supported. And the experience that we've had today has been immensely supportive. So thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Julie. It's a joy to learn and grow with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.